Greetings fellow men, Servus Männer, this is Red Bull Germany again, and today I want to tell you why we don't have a new government yet in Germany, even though our election was almost 2 months ago. Now the negotiations are still going on, and they turn out to be very hard negotiations. That was of course clear, and I said that in my last video on the German election, and in this video I want to make a little bit more clear to you guys why that is, who the major players are, and what we can expect. So let's start with the parties that are currently negotiating to find a workable coalition. The talks that are ongoing at the moment are the Jamaica talks. That is because the involved parties, they want to form a Jamaica coalition, and that means Jamaica stands here for the colors black, green and yellow, like in the Jamaican flag. So here of course the color black is Merkel's CDU with their sister party, the Bavarian State Party CSU, under the Bavarian governor Horst Seehofer. Now green of course stands for the Communistic Green Party. Prominent figures here are Katrin Göring-Eckardt and the Swabian Turk Cem Özdemir. Now the third or fourth faction, depends on if you want to count the CSU from Bavaria as an extra party, would be the FDP with the color yellow. That is our liberal party. They are a little more free market oriented than the other parties, but as I have stated before, I think they're a bunch of frauds and they're basically a big hoax. Don't expect any free market reforms from them. So what are the positions, what are the expectations of these players in the negotiations? So I can only tell you, of course, what I get from the German mainstream media, so I can tell you basically what these parties told the media. The picture that I am getting at the moment is that Angela Merkel's CDU, of course they have their plans and goals, but they are somewhere in the middle. It becomes really interesting in these negotiations what the smaller parties have to say. So the smaller parties are really the defining factors. They are the ones with the inconsolable extreme positions that need to find a consensus, that need to come together so that Angela Merkel can form her government. So I think because Angela Merkel needs all these smaller parties, she will have to agree to what they have to say. The problem is just that these smaller parties are, of course, while still being normies, all of them, they are polar opposites in the center of the German political spectrum. So all these parties have their traditionalist or more social democratic middlemen, so people that are in the middle of the spectrum, centrists so to speak, but these parties also have their more extreme positions, and they're not really extreme, but they are away from the center. That means the Green Party has, of course, very crazy extreme elements that are for the deindustrialization of Germany, for lots of green politics. They are almost exclusively people in the Green Party and their voter base also that work for the government. That means they don't make any money, they don't create any wealth, but they are basically just taking the money that the people in the private sector have to create. Not so the FDP. The FDP has a lot of self-employed people in it, and their voters are normally well-off self-employed people. That is classically their voter group. And so they are a little bit more for smaller government and lower taxes, but not really, because they're a small party and they always have to compromise, of course. So either they are playing a false game to begin with because they know that they cannot get their positions through, or they are basically just weak. Now the CSU, the sister party of Merkel's CDU, is a more traditionalist, more right-winged, more conservative Bavarian version of the CDU, and they are basically the state party. Not constitutionally, of course, but in practice they for a very long time had over 50% of the Bavarian votes, and they could rule in this way for a very long time without any coalition partner. That was pretty unique in Germany. But now that has changed. So because Seehofer, the Bavarian governor and the head of the CSU, did not get out of the coalition in 2015 when Angela Merkel illegally opened the borders and flooded our country with illegal immigrants. He is now faced with a situation where many of the traditional conservative voters that traditionally always voted for the CSU now hold a deep grudge against the CSU and Seehofer in particular, who was betraying their values and betraying his voter base because he wanted to cling on to the power in government in Berlin. And to make things worse for the Bavarian State Party, next year there will be a state election in Bavaria. Seehofer had already said, if the result in the federal election turns out to be bad, you can behead me, he said. That means he will basically step back. So now they are looking already for who's gonna come next. Will it be Mr. Söder? He could be in the comfortable position then that while Seehofer is at the negotiation table now with the Jamaica talks, Söder in turn could become the governor of Bavaria next year and then act as if the compromise with the leftist elements in the federal coalition are not of his making, and he could perform a quasi-oppositional role from the south, from Munich, as the governor of Bavaria. In this way, the CSU in Bavaria could actually play a double game here. While they of course agreed to the foul compromise with the Green Party and a very socialist Angela Merkel, they could sit in Munich and LARP as a conservative traditionalist party still. But still they have a lot to lose, and if they agree to all these outrageous positions of the Green Party that I will be talking about in a bit, they will lose a lot of votes next year, and then Söder, even though he will play this double game, will maybe not be able to be the governor of Bavaria at all. So this is why the CSU must be very traditionalist, very conservative, very mildly but still right-winged in those coalition talks right now. Now I should probably tell you what the main points of argument here are, the main points of conflict in these negotiations to form a new coalition. There are of course many points, but I will focus here on the major ones where I think that a compromise is least likely or very difficult to reach. First and foremost, it is of course migration. They are arguing about how many migrants on average per year we will accept, and also if the states of Northern Africa, of the Maghreb, should be declared safe states. That means we will not accept them generally as refugees here. Also that people who only have limited protection here in Germany, that means that they would have to go back after a certain time. The question is now, do these people get the right to fetch their entire families here and to let them live here on welfare, of course, in Germany with them? That would of course maybe more than triple the number of welfare recipients in this group, and we're talking about hundreds of thousands here. Now that is a question that needs to be decided anyway, but additionally other parties have their special wishes on their list. For example, the liberal FDP wants to lower the taxes. They want to get rid of a special tax that was introduced after the reunification of Germany that was intended to be used to build up the dilapidated infrastructure in Eastern Germany. Now they say it's about time that we abolish this extra tax again, and it was supposed to be running out by now anyway. But of course the other parties want bigger government, so they don't want that. Or they say that as a compromise we will get rid of this tax, but then we will increase other taxes so that the state gets the same income again. So they take out of the left pocket and they give in the right pocket. The net result is zero. Great. And the Green Party, for example, they want to shut down all coal power plants in Germany. And this is very serious because Angela Merkel already shut down the nuclear power plants in Germany, or at least most of them, and the other ones are scheduled to be shut down soon. So that would mean that coal power is the only remaining constant industrial scale power source in Germany. And they were actually really sneaky. Before the talk started, they said that they also want to ban the internal combustion engine in Germany, which would mean at the technological level that the world is at the moment, it would mean an end to personal transportation. That would mean you can just take the train or public buses or something, and that would mean that you are dependent on the state to take you from A to B. You cannot just get into a car and go somewhere, you would have to take a train. So the state can deny you transportation. So they dropped this demand, and now with regards to coal power they can say, oh look, we already compromised, we already dropped this demand, so now you have to give us the abolition of coal power. What that would mean is the deindustrialization of Germany. Power on an industrial scale would not be available anymore in a reliable, steady manner. We call that Grundlast, basic load, and we would only be left with random stochastical sources of electricity like wind and solar power that are not able to steadily deliver a constant power. With this kind of electricity creation, there would be no more industry in Germany. Our manufacturing would come to an end. Now, of course, the other parties want a strong German economy. They are responsible for that. They have a responsibility to their voting base, and they cannot agree to the deindustrialization of Germany. Or we would have to go into a lot of debt to just import coal and nuclear power from our neighbors, as we already do, by the way. But if we get rid of coal, that number would skyrocket. So you can see it is not easy for Angela Merkel to form a coalition out of these parties. One very conservative southern party in Bavaria who fears the election next year, who has a traditionalist conservative voting base that already holds a grudge against them. Then you have the Liberal Party that doesn't want to become the laughingstock of Germany again, like in the last coalition with Merkel, where they couldn't deliver, and then they almost vanished. They were kicked out of basically all the parliaments in the states, and they really just recovered briefly before the federal election this year. So I think they will not make this mistake twice and be too lenient and to make too many concessions during coalition talks. Also, the Green Party, of course, wants to drive the project further. They want to replace us with Africans. They want the deindustrialization of Germany, and they want the introduction of a totalitarian Soviet-like communist regime. That means no more jobs in the industry, total surveillance, the replacement, the extinction of the indigenous people, not only in Germany, but on the entire European continent. And if you think this is hyperbole, you don't know the Green Party. It is actually no coincidence that Katrin Göring-Eckardt is best friends with Angela Merkel. They are both Lutheran Protestants from the East. Angela Merkel is basically a Green Party politician who came as an infiltrator into Kohl's CDU, and they were actually in the same party once, DA in Eastern Germany, a party that was led by a Stasi informant and who performed, because the story broke, they performed really badly in the elections before the German reunification. So Angela Merkel then went into the CDU, and Göring-Eckardt went to Bündnis 90 and some other parties, and she finally ended up in the Green Party. But they were in the same Stasi party once, so they get along really well. They have the same ideology, the same roots. Katrin Göring-Eckardt in the Green Party, she can say what Angela Merkel cannot really say in public too often, at least. And that is things like, of course, Islam is a part of Germany, and of course, Mohammedans are part of Germany. And I also find that we should be happy about this. It would be so boring if we only were among ourselves here. We are getting people as presents now. Because of migration, Germany will become younger, more colorful, and more religious. We do not only need in Germany here female migrants and male migrants who have job experience or who have skills. No, we also and first and foremost need migrants who feel at home in our welfare system. A culture of welcoming foreigners, Willkommenskultur that is the best protection from terrorists. Of course, the YouTube channel of the Green Party has less subscribers than me. Their videos get more downvotes than upvotes, and the comment section is closed, of course. So now, Kameraden, I hope you have a better understanding of German politics once more, and you also understand why Germany still was not able to form a stable coalition and a government. And also our ex-Chancellor Gerhard Schröder, for example, he says that if Angela Merkel will establish this Jamaica coalition, it will only last for 2 years. Then there will be too many arguments, too much battle within the coalition, and we will have new elections in 2 years. That's at least the outlook of Gerhard Schröder. So enjoy the rest of your week, and as always, Servus, Kameraden!